Lying helpless in a Paris hospital, suffering from a grave abdominal condition, 42-year-old Howard Storm had only one thought: how long will it take me to die? An atheist, Howard believed that when death came, he would simply cease to exist. And so, confident of his final fate and weary of the fight, Howard said goodbye to his wife, closed his eyes, and waited for oblivion. A few moments later, Howard awoke. Much to his shock, not only was he very much alive, but he was no longer lying in his hospital bed. Instead, he was standing by it. On top of that, his senses were supercharged. He could hear his own blood rushing through his veins, smell the chlorine on the sheets, and feel every slight movement of air against his skin. In the midst of this sensory overload, a bright light suddenly flooded the room. He tried repeatedly to communicate to his wife, but she never responded. Instead, she remained glued to her chair, her head bowed, softly crying, seemingly oblivious to his existence. His efforts to communicate with his wife proving futile, Howard looked down at the bed next to him. There, lying in his hospital bed, was a large, motionless lump. Howard took a step closer, and as he did, a wave of horror swept over him. Dear God, that lump is me. In shock, Howard braced himself against the hospital room wall. That's when he heard the hushed voices. At first he was unsure from where they were coming, but as he walked toward the door, he realized they were coming from down the hallway. Even more bizarre, they were calling his name. Howard, Howard, come out here. They beckoned in perfect English, with absolutely no trace of a French accent. Way down at the end of the strangely gray and misty hall, he vaguely made out the outline of 4 or 5 people, their hands extended and fingers motioning him to follow them. Howard, come on. We've been waiting for you for such a long time. We can help you, they pleaded. Unsure at first what to do, Howard stood in the doorway, anxious about leaving the security of his hospital room. Finally, he started toward the voices. Fighting a gnawing sense of fear, Howard told himself to get a grip. Who else could they be but hospital staff? Despite his attempts to reassure himself, with each step he took, the sense of foreboding increased. The voices, sensing his hesitancy, became impatient. Even he was noticing, with not a little concern, a bit surly. Howard, you have to come with us, now. Howard kept walking, fearful but strangely fascinated. Inexplicably, the longer he walked, the darker the hallway seemed to get. Then, in a flash, he didn't know how or why, the thought came to him that it was all a ruse. Those people were not there to help him. They were there to hurt him. Before he could even process that thought, Howard suddenly stumbled as the hallway took a slight dip and darkness enveloped him. Instantly, Howard was bombarded with a barrage of the foulest language he had ever heard. Realizing his horrible mistake, Howard quickly turned to go back to his hospital room. Immediately, he was savagely attacked. Trying to defend himself, he swung back like a wild man. It was futile. There in the pitch-black darkness, he could feel their solid bodies pressing against him. Only now, instead of a few, there were hordes of them, jeering as they surrounded him like a pack of wild dogs. With their long nails and sharp teeth, they began to bite and tear at his flesh. To his horror, he realized that he was being taken apart and eaten alive. And that's when he knew. The nihilists, the atheists, the skeptics, they had all been wrong. Dead wrong. There was no oblivion, no annihilation, and no end of existence when a person left this world.